Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be showing you a hot launch tutorial. So what is a hot launch? Well, that's when you launch your kite directly downwind right in the center of the power zone. This is definitely not a beginner's technique, and even if you're an advanced kiter, we don't recommend you do this unless it's absolutely necessary. There are two scenarios that you may need to use a hot launch for. The first is extremely light wind, we're talking 10 knots or less. And the second is going to be spot dependent. Like in our local spot right here, we really only have one choice to hot launch because there is zero wind at the bottom.
Ooh, we're running.
So as you can see around me, there's lots of bushes, there's tall trees, we are in a wind shadow, and there's just no way that we can do a side launch here. We really have no other choice but to hot launch. Now and again, some riders try to side launch in the wind shadow, but as you can see in this example, the trees are blocking the wind, and unless you yank the kite above the tree line, the kite won't launch. In this case, the rider managed to save the situation, but more often than not, that's not the case. So what this often involves is us running backwards, hoping to catch a gust, and once the kite reaches tree level, it usually has enough wind to fly. Collectively, we've probably done hundreds, if not thousands, of hot launches at this particular location, and one thing is certain, they are dangerous. As you'll see from some of these clips, things do go wrong from time to time, so it's best to avoid the hot launch unless it's absolutely necessary. And again, we do not recommend beginners try this. Even if you're an experienced kiter, you should avoid hot launching if at all possible. If you can side launch or do any other type of launch, go that way rather than the hot launch. If you really need to hot launch, then I recommend learning it in light wind on a wide beach or a big field where you have room for error. In almost all the cases where a hot launch goes wrong, it's due to pilot error. So how can you minimize these errors? First and foremost, you want to make sure your lines and your bridles are attached correctly. In this undramatic example, the rider had steering and power lines slipped on one side, which prevented him from launching up the kite. The same thing happened in this example as well.
Not bad.
You'll also want to make sure that you're trimmed to maximum D-power. In this clip, the rider forgot to depower the kite and instead had it set for full power. No wonder he got yanked. If the wind was stronger, things could have ended up being much worse. Please always set the trimmer to full depower. In higher winds, it's preferable you have at least one person holding your kite, preferably two, and to have someone holding the back of your harness, because as you launch the kite up into the power zone, you probably will get yanked, so if you have someone holding you, it'll prevent you from getting pulled forward. So if you're counting, that's quite a few people to assist you launching. In many cases, there's just not that many people at the beach. So if you do have to hot launch by yourself and you don't have someone holding the back of your harness, just be prepared to be pulled about 20 meters downwind, as Eugene did in this particular clip. Speaking of footwear, hot launching barefoot is probably not the smartest idea. If you fly foil kites and you're hot launching in light wind, you'll want to pre-inflate your kite fully. If you're flying your foil kite in high winds, you'll want to pre-inflate just a little bit to minimize that slingshot forward.
Wait.
In this example, the kite was fully inflated during hot launch, which yanked the rider quite a bit, even in lighter wind. Here's another example of me getting dragged downwind with a fully inflated foil kite. When the wind speeds are higher and the foil kite is not fully inflated, the wing generates quite a bit of drag, which minimizes the pull, but the downside is you have less control. When you're hot launching, it's always a good idea to have your second hand on the quick release, just in case something goes wrong. So as you're pulling the kite up, as you're hot launching, you may have to remove your hand from the safety to the bar in order to steer the kite up correctly. This is just another reason that makes the hot launch more dangerous than regular launching. We want to repeat this. You definitely want to check your lines, double check them, make sure they're completely clear of tangles, because if you hot launch and you have a tangle in your line, your kite could end up in a tree or you could end up getting seriously injured. So take your time and double check your lines. Another thing is that you don't want to have any objects downwind of you when hot launching. As you can see here, we do have some bushes and trees downwind of us, but unfortunately we can't move those. We can, however, make sure there's no people downwind of us. That's extremely important. There's lots of people walking on this walkway all the time, and so we just wait until they've cleared the way before we launch, and then that way we don't put any bystanders in danger. The most important tip of all is to avoid hot launching as much as you possibly can. Don't use it unless you absolutely have to. All right, thank you so much for watching. We hope you found these tips helpful. And yeah, it's time for me to go kite, so I'll see you next time. Bye.